A couple of days back, uh, a few of my friends were sitting together and we were talking about stuff that has happened in the past. Uh, so we spoke a lot of things, but a particular topic that kept coming up was uh, challenging circumstances, uh, or say grief that we've gone through, or suffering that we have uh, seen, and how it has made us what we are today, and how we look at the world, and what we do with ourselves. Um, so, one particular insight that struck me when one of my friends was talking about my challenges, the ones that I went through earlier in my life, uh, he was saying good things, how I handled them, and uh, how perseverant I was. Uh, I realized that I wasn't identifying with the calm and the perseverant, uh, or the bad or the good. There was no such thing. I did see the connection between my experiences and what I had become. Uh, and I like what I'm becoming, and uh, inspired to be a little more of some of the things, uh, uh, have a few restraints on some other things, try and study this whole process as much as the person that I'm becoming, so that I'm a little more lighter, if I were to use the term. Uh, so maybe loosely, this chat can be about grief and grace, if I were to call it that. Uh, what are your initial thoughts? Before that, let me welcome you to the chat today, Hemant Gupta, and the audience is well versed with your and my connection. So I would directly jump into the topic and ask your first thoughts on this subject.
So thank you, Bunty, again for co-holding this space so that we could explore something that might come up, which individually would not have been possible. So I really um, treasure these interactions with you, and thankful to you, Bunty. Thank you. Um, if let me first rephrase what you were uh, straddling, which is there a connection? Is there a connection between grief and grace in some sense? That's the thing. And I would just take a step back and um, I think there is the element of when there are different anecdotal stories in different wisdom tradition. One story I recall, Dr. Himmat Sinha once narrating. Um, Dr. Himmat Sinha passed away just recently, about a year back maybe, and he was a contemporary scholar of comparative religions and comparative philosophies from Kurukshetra University. And I remember one story he was mentioning, which is a story from Vedanta, where there's a man who's who's basically a farmer, and he has his parents and his wife and a son. And something happens. I think there's a snake bite, and the son passes away. The guy doesn't know he's working in the field. Somebody quickly approaches him and tells him that something like this has happened. Um and the moment the information was landed by the messenger, he was expecting some kind of a reaction or something in the person, when you deliver these kind of information.
Hmm.
Apparently, the man heard the information, took a moment or two, and he didn't give away anything in those 2 3 moments, except that he was just in the posture that he was in. And after that, two things happened. Number one, he said, "Look, you know my house. I'll still give you directions. So you have to go from here to here to here to here. And you'll find my wife and you'll have to tell her this thing has happened. She may not know. The guy said, why can't you do it? He said, I want to work the fields. And that's it. The guy was a little a little taken aback that what happened? Why is this guy not reacting? Is it the other effect? The guy has got overwhelmed and he is completely numb to it, and then now want to deflect, distract himself. Anyways, he proceeds from there. He finds the house. He delivers the same thing. So he doesn't reach the house. तो उनकी जो वाइफ है वो वहीं मिल गई उनको थोड़े रास्ते में ही। तो he delivers the same message to his wife now, and again the similar kind of reaction or response. And now this guy is stunned, and maybe I'm not verbatim requoting the story, but I think somewhere towards the end the story narrates that the thinking that this particular family who lost their child were they believed in they completely believed and immersed and experienced the idea that you are only a custodian of this child. You're not the creator of it. And much as what our conditioning would want us to believe, or our own love and affection would want us to believe, at best we are all custodians of each other, no matter what the relationships we have. Our parents, our sibling, our spouses, our children, our friends. And then if we operate from that, then our responses are very different to the grace we receive when they are there around, or the hurt we receive from each other, or finally the grief that we give that might come up when somebody passes away. So that's the first invocation. I think depending on the deep cosmologies that we have and society conventions that we have been all programmed in a way to behave in a certain way in certain situation. And also there is this affordance that if somebody is going through grief, then a lot of things are pardoned. If the person behaves in a certain manner, you pardon them. Ki, theek hai, the person may be really, not in his senses and is grieving right now. Things are not so simple as what I may be making out to them to be. But I think we are in this mesh and mess of so much of conditioning and mutual expectations we have of each other, which we may not have gone deeper and looked at. And then there are certainly certain emotions that we carry attached to people, attached to status, attached to possessions, that might be invoked and triggered when we lose something is broken.
Okay. So this goes a little off track, but I was just watching some series on Netflix as of right now. So the particular episode that I just watched some time back, so there was an interaction between two people related to the same person. The same person is an autistic guy, but he's a genius of sorts. And so one of the people is a mentor to this guy, and the other one is a friend of his. And the mentor has problems now, and the friend is suggesting that you tell about the problem to this autistic fellow. He refuses. He says, I have been taking care of him all the while. I don't want to burden him with my problems. He says, so the friend says, it's unfair because you are friends. You need to trust him. He is an adult now. You've been taking care of him for a long time. But he faces the world and he's a caring, good human being. So you ought to pay attention. After a while, the mentor realizes that he is right. So he lands up apologizing and narrating his problem to the autistic guy, and so on the story moves forward. The reason why I bring up this particular snippet of that episode is words are taken at face value. So he lands up saying some things that hurts the friend, and then he apologizes to the friend also. He also lands up following the advice, uh, which may be a cultural thing or which may be it's unknown to me. But I'm saying honesty in a relationship is a very good thing to have, even if it is a relationship which we don't have immediate. So these two were related to the same guy, and that's the end of it. They don't have a rapport among themselves except for that particular day in that episode. My question to you, from all the other things that you mentioned, was how do you see the value of uh, maintaining a true sense of relationship with anyone that you have, uh, so that whether it is a grief striking situation that has come up, or it is a situation of some kind of grace or happiness that is happening, so irrespective of the quality of the event, one is able to connect. Do you see there is a role for honesty to be played there? And if so, how?
Um, 13 years back, when I started this journey of uh, discovering for myself what, in some sense, my experiments with truth or my experiments with lies, if I may
Yeah.
use that. Um, uh, Initially, I would go back and I would say I was slightly maybe not informed enough or not reflective enough, not aware of my own body and my emotions and my own thoughts and borrowing of all vocabulary and conditioning. And I, at that point, really genuinely believed in a certain things that, these questions that I have, which are troubling me, whether it's about what's the best, uh, honesty is the best policy or whatever. Um, I just need to get my hands on people's anecdote and their reflections and their wisdom. And somehow I had come to believe that those questions asked by those people and those answers answered by those people would become mine. So I sort of believe that the borrowed questions and borrowed answers could become mine. And I just need to download them much like WhatsApp next version and just use it as a software. Uh, I just feel two things. One is sometimes sometimes I feel I'm actually afraid a lot of times with things which are very simple. Uh, in fact, nowadays I think I don't get so much afraid of complexity and confusing and paradoxes that I get afraid of simplicity. And I think two things happen. One is which doesn't mean that I'm against either. I'm not against simplicity. I'm not against complexity. I just feel that if it works for somebody for a long period of time and they're okay with their effects on people around them and the environment around them, if it's working, go ahead and do it. I mean, um, if it works and people around don't constrain you with norms, rules, or whatever. Um, But I think I feel that, first of all, values like honesty, values like anything that you uphold and consider it as very, very crucial as a North Star or an index, I feel they're always intermeshed with other values. Maybe it's not there available when we are talking about it, but things could be interwoven. And some under certain context, that might not be the right thing to do, perhaps. So imagine right now you're in a room and imagine Dalai Lama walks in and you're happy Dalai Lama is in your house. I'm just assuming you're happy. you might not be happy also.
I am
Uh,
happy.
so let's say Dalai Lama walks in and he suddenly says, you know what, some secret agents are after his life, and he needs uh, a space
Place
to
to
hide,
hide.
right? And all your life you have practiced honesty, and you've always even penalized people around you for honesty. And you take him in, you hide him, and after some time the doorbell rings and the secret agents show up. And they ask you, is Dalai Lama here? Now, the question is, would you go being honest that you have so professed all your life? Or would you be dishonest because you want to do something greater good, which Dalai Lama can continue to give to the world? So I feel that some of these values have not been stress tested in our mind's workshop or in our life's workshop. And when they are stress tested, multiple values are stress tested over a period of time, and you become reflective of them. Then I think over a period you become slightly different in holding them and using them across context. That's my immediate response.
Uh, the idea of the question, I'm trying to phrase it in a manner so that it becomes a little more palatable to a different kind of answer, perhaps, or perspective, not necessarily a different answer, is that when we are communicating with each other, there is a certain assumption that the word means what it is supposed to mean. Uh, or there are certain assumptions that I won't cheat you, you won't cheat me, so then we will be having a kind of binding or a good relationship, considering that we are not out to get each other, or not competing, or not harmful, or not toxic, or any of these negatives. So there is a reasoning to that word, not necessarily bound by uh, the word's own limitations or the changing frames of events. Uh, More or less in a non-stressful environment, in a logically decent, small level interaction with the world, uh, we both take it for granted that we will be having a conversation uh, or a relationship based on a certain set of values. Loosely, obviously. Uh, so, anyways, if I decide to cheat you and you decide to cheat me, then there is no law in the world that can stop it. That's my understanding, because a law is framed so that we try and be fair to each other. Obviously, what you now, if you were to push the example you gave, if that particular episode, uh, Dalai Lama is actually caught and then I am taken to court, so where I am taken to court will also decide what is the law applicable there. Because if I am taken to a place where they see it as a heroic thing, where I try to save somebody in spite of the threat on my life, they'll think, oh, it is a great thing. And if it is being held in another court, in another geography, they may think that I have been a traitor and I have been a liar, and both of them would be right or wrong depending upon what perspective they take. So that will always stay. My question, okay, let us just then inverse it to a personal thing, not even outside. How honest am I to my own set of values? Uh, as much as possible, non-stressful conditions, because uh, highly stressful conditions then actually bring out uh, the survival instinct also, perhaps, or a higher morality if somebody has. So Harishchandra demanding a piece of cloth for cremating his only son is an extraordinary event. So those things one cannot really predict, uh, both the positive or the negative, unless one is put in that position. And so uh, it is funny in a black kind of way. There's this friend of mine who's taking care of an elderly relative who's up all night and troubling him. So another friend was very curious because he knew of my stories where I had to be up all night, and that other friend is now also up all night. So he has a the guy who's curious has a dad who's quite aged now. He's been saying that no, no, I don't want any such thing to happen, and so I'll come over. We will go to that person is now in Gujarat. So I want to see what happens when we have to be up all night taking care of a patient. We were all laughing that you cannot feel anything for somebody who is somebody else's relative. So even if you are up all night or not, it's not really going to have a bearing because your connection to the whole episode is farcical at best or exploratory, even with your best of intents to really understand the human condition, is not going to push you as much as your own father's. As luck would have it, his father has developed some kind of condition as of right now, and so uh, instead of being saying I'm sorry, I'll end up saying now you don't need to travel so much, you will get the same experience at home. You can be up all night and really know for a fact what it entails. So what I'm trying to bring up is the inner journey is about you progressing. So very often you keep talking about 13 years back. So there can be a lot of aspects to that, either an incident or a series of incidents or the person you became or something that prompted the journey to start from there. You've been born for many more years before that. So for some reason you took certain values at face value till the time you reach that time 13 years earlier from now. My question to you is, how does one ensure that the inner journey, when it is going through a series of events that are not enjoyable or they are restricting you mentally or physically in some manner and putting pressure, how does one look at grief? And does the sense of looking change something? How our perspective forms the person that we are? Yeah, I guess that is the long and short of my question.
I will attempt to respond. I don't know whether I'll be able to. So there is something called as conceptual learning and experiential learning.
Yeah,
Conceptual learning can be, somebody's done something and you get the concept, you take the concept, you use it, and then maybe experience it and see. But there are certain things where unless there is an experience of it, it's difficult to relate. You can have a concept around it, and there are actually two terms here: cognitive empathy and emotional empathy. Cognitive empathy is I understand what you feel, and emotional empathy is I feel what you feel.
okay.
So there are some things that unless you go through them, you won't understand what's at play. Um, Sorry, can you rephrase the question because I'm still maybe I'm not.
So, okay. So there is grief. Now there could be imaginary grief, there could be experiential grief. So I may have a ailment that I am trying to get out of, a headache. There could be another thing where I'm stressed about a job that I'm unable to deliver on time or uh, not paid for, any such thing. Something that is giving me stress, and I'm thinking day and night about it, how to deal with it, and uh, talk to the client or say rough things or be amiable to the whole discussion, or be forceful, or bring in some other element, or anything. You want to go further and blackmail that I won't give you the file till you do this. There are people who've done that as well, but which again comes from a place of antagonism. Now the grief is there. One place is a mental kind of thing where I'm creating, proliferating the whole scenario and saying, oh, this could be done, this could be done, and I'll win the situation. Another place I actually have a headache. I need to calm down my mind and either take a medicine which is going to work, and in either of the cases, I have an option of using my mind and body to go beyond mind and body in terms of calming myself down. Whatever I know, I can be doing some kind of chanting of some name, or praying something, or meditating, uh, or genuinely breaking through. Okay, this and this are the issues, and this is this. My question to you: is there a better way to do things? There are many ways to do things, but is there a way where one can really benefit in terms of helping oneself calm down, calm the situation as such, and also in hopefully have some impact on the entire event as well? So the distance between grief and grace, if I were to call it that, is there a way to bridge it within oneself?
Um, so I think there is this framing that a couple of framings that I may have used earlier in our earlier podcast. One is that in some sense we are a thinking, feeling, saying, doing species. We think, we feel, we say, we do. And the word here, thinking, is not just thinking. Thinking could be intentions and part of some part of sense making and stuff. The word feeling is not just feeling. It could be smell, sound, taste, touch, and all of that. The word saying is not just saying, it's also listening, communication in general, and doing anyways is there. So I think our doing is in constant interplay with our thinking, feeling, and saying, of the current, of the past, of the future. And I would take the question a little further and say, is there a better thinking? Is there feeling? Is saying? Is there a better doing? Uh, Now, the moment, let's say somebody is stuck with grief, maybe a lot of things are happening which are shocking to the person, because you don't, I mean, I don't know of a person who's grieved all day, all day, all days of his life. Grief is intermittent. Uh, Maybe happens for a lot of people for a lot of time. ऐसा नहीं कह रहा हूँ, because there are people who empathize a lot more and are grieving for a loss of their army, or people that they see in their hospital room, or somebody who buries the body every day. For them, grief would be very different than somebody who experiences it in a different way. Um, I think the question is, can we cultivate practices to think better, feel better, say better, do better? Is there a way to have a desired alignment between the four, so that I'm not thinking something else and doing something else, and vice versa? Um, and the answer is yes. I mean, that's the whole journey of the inner world. That's first framing I would invoke. The second framing is Freud, about 100 years back, or maybe 125 years back, in one of his essays, Civilization and His Discontent, mentions the thing of three sources of suffering: the body, the relations, and the nature. This creating challenge for a human being. He saw his patients, over a period of time. It's either the body, so different proportions of body, relations, and nature. And the same thing is reflected in ancient तापत्रय बोलते हैं उसको ancient Indian wisdom में, which is Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika, Adi Adhyatmika, which is what are the sources of suffering? Again, the similar kind of body nature relations. The third framing that we have already used earlier in our chats is there is suffering and there is suffering upon suffering, or the suffering in the anticipation of suffering, which is actually Buddha's framing in some way. So I may have a pain in the body, yes, but then I may develop further pain. Why is this? Is this not cancer? कहीं ये तो नहीं हो गया? Or is this, what will happen to my assignment because of this? Or it could be n number of things that you can build upon. Joseph Goldstein, who's the current person who conducts something called as the Insight Hour podcast, he says that you cannot undo the first arrow of suffering, the body, the headache, the stuff. But you can certainly do something with the second arrow. The second arrow are those stories that we build in our minds. And again, depending on how thickly we are engaged in the world, it is not to say that we should not think about these things. But if it cripples you, paralyzes you chronically every time for a long period of time, then it needs to be re-looked at, and you need to postpone some of them. But for somebody else, they may have the first arrow, which is headache or any body ailment. But the second arrow is something that they use as a mind factory to think about potential solutions to work towards it, rather than getting crippled by it. So, these are some of the framings that come to mind. But yeah, I don't know whether I've really attempted to address your question.
No, it is a good reminder, although we keep circling a few basic facts about inner life, more or less, in most of our podcasts and chats. Uh, and it is not by chance, I would like to think, because these are the core of how we practice and what we look at, and it kind of drives the perspective home
Correct.
for us individually, and perhaps those are kind of milestones uh, in a kind of knowing the way thing rather than achievements. Uh, so while it may seem apparent, I want you to contemplate a bit on uh, what is a feeling called grace. Uh, do you think of it as a term in your personal life? How do you relate to it? Uh, what is it that it makes you feel?
I generally mostly use the word blessings. That there is a blessing.
Yeah.
Feel blessed. I would consider that comes somewhere there is some connection between that word and concept with grace. In that sense, I think there is this reminder and an experience of there's a lot that one doesn't know why things happen the way they happen. And you believe that is somewhere helping you in your journey. Sometimes it could be so grace. I think I would say that there could be a popular version of grace, which is when you feel eased, when you feel convenienced, when you feel some miracles have happened to you.
Okay.
But I also feel that the opposite of these could also be grace.
Yes.
There is a saying in North कि उसकी लाठी में आवाज नहीं होती.
Hmm.
So sometimes, grace happens because something happens to somebody else. But then maybe it was to tame the evil of the other, and you feel that there is a grace upon you through somebody else. Um, so yeah, I think it's a concept on which an entire PhD or a book could be written, honestly. Um, like brother Stendhal Rast used to talk about gratitude. Benedictine monk he was, and he used to say that you cannot be grateful for all the things in your life, but you can be grateful all the times in your life. Even in moments when we are on the back foot, down, out, crippled, paralyzed, dusted, you could still you could still have either grace coming from your memory of all the things that you've been blessed with, or the sheer fact that there is somebody, not somebody, but there is a force beyond your comprehension. Uh, Maybe in that order, something like, even if it is against you, has some meaning, has something beyond that you can understand. So even that is grace.
And that's an interesting discovery, perhaps, the fact that if one has some meaning or associates some meaning or some purpose with things that are happening to us, may feel like it is grace uh, in a temporary way. Uh, and like you very rightly mentioned, sometimes it could also be uh, a negative that is grace, but we may not see it as such. And that quote is absolutely, I think, fundamental, that you can be grateful all the time, even if you're not grateful for all the events that are happening per se. Uh, I think that's a graceful note to end on, because the contemplation of uh, what would one would call grief, or what one would call grace itself, can go for hours in a manner. But this is a very nice place to stop, where one can say, okay, okay, one can relook at one's premise, not getting stuck by words perhaps, and study what is happening per se. Uh, on that lovely note, thank you so much for joining me at a short notice today. I
Thank you so
enjoyed
much.
today's talk as much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.